All right, so we can go ahead and get started. So I guess first you could just talk about your early childhood, where you grew up, any memories you have of your parents or siblings or anything like that, or things you enjoyed doing as a child.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. Are you gonna? Are you just gonna continually run, or are you gonna pause? I mean.
Oh yeah, I mean you can take breaks and pause. It's fine. I mean, and you really can just talk.
Okay.
Just like you're talking to me.
Okay. Okay. Oh, you're starting now?
Yeah. And you can look at me. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I wonder if it's just somewhere
Okay.
random.
Well, I was born in Westchester, Pennsylvania, but I really started growing up down in Tampa, Florida. Hi. And my earlier memories were going on a speedboat down there in Florida, and just actually riding in the back seat of the speedboat, and living on a houseboat, which is a little different, but.
I've never heard any of this.
And then I came up north to Baltimore and ended up in Ardmore, but the early experiences were actually. I'm trying to think. And can you turn it off a minute? Okay, you can turn it.
Oh, you're fine. Yeah, just
All right. Okay.
So why did you move so much, or what took you down to Tampa and then to Baltimore?
Well, my dad was not a used car salesman. He was a salesman of Cadillacs and high end. Even though at that time it was starting to be Depression time.
Yeah.
And, but he apparently had a good business down there and did all right for himself. But then he, anyway, we came north and Baltimore and ended up in Ardmore when my dad worked for a insulation company, installing insulation in houses and stuff. He did pretty well there. And
And so his job, like he just went down to Tampa to sell cars.
Yeah.
And then did he? So how long did you live in Tampa for?
Before I was only there until I was about 4 years old.
Okay, so you were really young.
Yeah. So I didn't really start school until we finally ended up in Upper Darby, and it was a Tower Theater in Upper Darby. I still remember where they gave out little children's ceramic dolls. You take them home and you paint them and you paint them.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And so I lived there for a couple of years, and then I think where we went from there to Ardmore and went to Wynwood Road School, and they had 7 grades in Wynwood School, and I learned how to play the drums in Wynwood, and had a drum and bugle corps there. And I remember making a lot of stuff in the woodworking shop, bookcases and footstools and all like that. And but then I went from Wynwood to Lower Merion schools. I went to Lower Merion. At that time, they called them junior high. Okay. And they had the 8th and 9th grade in Wynwood. And then I went to Lower Merion Senior High for just part of the first my sophomore year, and had to move in about January of my sophomore year. I had to move to Norristown, okay, and they're
Sophomore year of high school?
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were there earlier than that.
No, it's my 10th grade, and joined the Norristown High School band, and had great experiences with that.
Snare drum?
playing in the orchestra and the bands. And well, actually, they start you off with the bass drum, you know.
Oh, really?
And then the second year they promote you to the snare drum, and you're in the marching band there. And I was always also in the orchestra there in Norristown High School, which was great.
What'd you play in the orchestra?
Yeah, I played in the drums.
Drums?
Like the snare drums and the, you know,
For the orchestra. Oh, that's
the
cool.
cymbals, you know, all
Yeah.
that. Okay.
Oh, wow.
And then we had one great experience at Norristown in the senior year in the band. Played in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania, in the state finals concert, and we won the state
Wow.
medal. That was the only
Wow.
only year that Norristown ever won that
Wow.
state make. So that was good.
And that would have been around, what, 1939?
No, I started there.
1940?
Yeah, I started in Norristown in 1940. 40, and so I graduated in 42.
Okay.
And what else have we got? Played in the band.
So what about your, what yeah, what do you remember about the houseboat? Lisa wants to know more about
The what?
The houseboat.
You lived in Florida.
The houseboat.
You lived on a houseboat?
As my recollection, yeah, it wasn't real comfortable, but that's what I recall. But and it was on the bay.
The whole time you were in Florida?
Uh,
No, maybe not.
I think so, but of course I was only about.
And you said you were less
You
than
were like
4.
3.
I was only
That's-
4. I don't
Yeah.
remember a whole lot about it.
But you remember your dad had a speedboat, you said?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So what siblings were with you?
What sibling?
What siblings would have been with you?
Well, I just had. I had 2 brothers, and one was 8 years older than I, and that was Harry. And then his second brother was 13 years older than I was, and he. They called him Bud because he didn't want to be called Carol. That's up his.
Yeah. Uncle Bud.
But I didn't. I had a kind of a weird family. I didn't really get to know my brothers until I was in school. I was about 3rd or 4th grade before I really. I'm not sure. Wasn't really ever filled in exactly where they were before that time. But anyway,
Yeah.
I just Harry, my brother, lived in Westchester. But see, where did I leave off?
So yeah, going.
Dad.
And at school, and after I graduated in 40.
Well, before we get to that, can
Yeah.
you talk about high school or?
Oh, okay.
Your school years a little bit. You said you did the band and the orchestra. Any other hobbies or interests, or do you remember things you did with your friends, or any stories of crazy things you did when you were young?
Let's see. I'm trying to think whether I. No, I can't think outside of Halloween, that kind of stuff. And
Do you remember what you did for Halloween?
Yeah, we went around and not only Halloween, but on what do they call it the day before when you did pranks. Yeah, pranks. What they call it? There was a day.
Like senior prank day, or you're talking about New Year's Eve, or?
No, on Halloween, but the day before Halloween was
I don't know.
Mischief Night. Mischief
Night. Okay.
Yeah, we had kind of like soaping windows and different things on the around that mess up your lawn. No, I mean that wasn't too.
Yeah, just
some
fun pranks.
some people overdid it, but we played it pretty mild. And then of course dressing up on Halloween, going around with a bag and going to usual Halloween stuff. But
What now? And we don't have to get into this too much if you don't want to. But were you close with your parents at all, or were you close with either of your brothers? I know you said you didn't get to know them until you were a little older.
yeah, I was close to my older brother because my dad my dad died while I was in high school.
Okay.
So my brother and his wife took me in, took my mother and I in. Actually, I didn't talk about much about my mother, but
Oh yeah.
That was Uncle Bud, right?
Uncle Bud,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's what he
yeah,
said.
yeah. And
Oh, I don't think I knew that. That
Yeah.
you lived with him and his wife.
yeah, I guess that's about 4 years. But that about 4 years, I guess. And so. Anything else on that? In that early age limit, is that okay?
No, no, that's fine. Well, actually, do you remember anything about the Great Depression? You were born in 23.
23, yeah.
Is that correct? So
Yeah.
the Depression hit what? I mean, end of 29, right around 30.
29, yeah, that was when the crash.
Right around 30.
Yeah,
So I mean, you would have been, school age.
But,
Do you remember
yeah.
anything about that? What your life was like?
Only that we had to watch our meals. I mean, how much we ate, and we had to make sure you clean that plate up when you're finished. Don't.
Yeah.
You think of all the people that are having trouble getting meals, and
Yeah.
but and I still remember at Bond we lived in. Okay, we lived in. I'm getting ahead of myself, but we lived in Ardmore and had a bread salesman. They called a Bond bread salesman, and in the back we always had the high steps going out to the back door, and it must have been about 30 steps or something going up. And every day he was so faithful bringing the bread to us.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a great guy. I don't know why that sticks in my mind, but
Sort of like the milkman coming.
Huh?
Right? The milkman would deliver too, right?
yeah, milkman was deliver all the milk in the glass
Yeah.
bottles at the front door every morning with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. You put out your empty bottles and they would pick those up.
Wow.
Where was I? Okay.
That's fine. So let's get into. So what happened after high school? What'd you do after that?
Okay. Yeah, I graduated in June of '42, and then of course we were in the war had broken out just before that, and I fortunately got a job at Allen Wood Steel Company in Conshohocken, and I was a clerk in their mill office. They call it the metallurgy department, I guess. I was a clerk there, and I still remember I had a desk there, and it was the policy to have somebody in the office with candy. So I had a drawer full of candy, so people would come over
Oh my
and ask for the
goodness,
candy, and
that's so
they would pay you for the
Oh wow.
for the candy.
Wow.
Kinda
Oh,
weird.
they pay you
Yeah, they
because
paid.
you were in charge of.
I had.
Yeah.
How much would a piece of candy cost?
Oh, that was it started off at 10 cents, 9 cents.
Yeah.
Easy to find. Yeah.
Wow.
Carry don't step over that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what'd you do from there then?
And
Or how long did you work there?
then things got tough during the war, and they were running short of men in the war. So I was drafted in February of 43, and went to the induction center in Indiantown Gap. Yeah, thank you. And unfortunately, my sister-in-law had taught me how to type. Unfortunately, before that time. So I was lucky, and I told them you write out a resume what experience you've had. So I took a test on the typewriter, and I must have done okay. So from Indiantown Gap, they shipped us out. Of course, we had no idea where we were going. So we took about it seemed like a 2-day train ride.
Wow.
And we had no idea. So we finally woke up one morning and heard the band outside of the train saying, said deep in the heart of Texas they were playing.
Wow.
So that was the first time we knew we were in Texas. And
What part of Texas?
and near Austin.
Okay.
Yeah. And we ended up in Camp Swift. It was not a full-time, I would call it, Army camp. It was built for the war. Okay. And ended up there, and my first experience I remember there was we were in the barracks, and the one fellow, and when you had in the barracks, you were only about 3 or 4 feet from between cots. This one fellow came down with spinal meningitis, and that's a very contagious disease. And as soon as they learned, of course, he was out. But they had to check us every day to make sure we were okay. I don't know why that sticks with me, but and I still remember the men's room, the latrine they call it. That was a shock when no privacy, nothing, no. Yeah, really. And but the food was good in the mess hall.
And so what were you doing there? Training? Were they
basic training?
Basic training?
You're there 13 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. And you're on the rifle range, and I finally hit the target. No.
Yeah.
That was okay.
What if people aren't good at shooting? They just keep working with
We
them?
keep on working on it.
Basic
Yeah.
training is,
Yeah, you have to pass that. Pass the rifle, inspection.
Yeah.
And my platoon, I was in the headquarters company, 2nd Battalion, 386th Infantry Division,
Wow.
97th Division
Good
Infantry.
memory.
Yeah, you remember that one.
And I still remember the rifle range. I finally got through that rifle range, and then they put me down in the target area. I was calling out the target, telling them when to raise the target, and after they finished one round of shooting, then they had to count the number of hits on the target or misses, whatever it was, and then they report back to the range how that particular person made out with that on that target. Yeah. So that was the experience.
Yeah. Before we get too much further into this, because I know you have some good stories from World War II, can you talk a little bit about how you were raised in terms of faith?
Oh, sure.
Because I don't know if I know that necessarily, and
Yeah.
if that impacted your thoughts or feelings on being in the war. I mean, I know you were drafted,
Yeah.
but how were you raised in your faith, and did that impact
Yeah.
your feelings about being in the war?
Yeah, my family as a whole, my family, of course, I was living with my mother and brother and his wife, and they were mediocre as far as faith was concerned. They didn't really, nobody went to my mom and I went to the Presbyterian Church in Ardmore, and I still remember a pastor named Frew. He was a Scottish man, F-R-E-W, Frew. And I joined that church finally, but I didn't stay there too long. Before we had to move to that's when we moved to Norristown. So we moved to Norristown and joined the First Presbyterian Church in Norristown. Still a member there. So we joined there in 40. I think that was 48. Anyway.
Oh, your mother did too?
Yeah, she joined.
Okay.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, and our pastor, Dr. Coram, was a pastor. He was there, but how many years? A long time, 30-some years, I think. Yeah. And but from there, that's when I was drafted. And I still remember, after I got to Camp Swift, I wrote a letter to my mom about my experiences as far as the church was concerned. I said, I commented on the sermons and so forth. And I'm not sure exactly what I said in there, but I think I said not many of us was from the. I couldn't see any other fellows there in the church, but anyway, the letter that I wrote my mom must have taken it to the pastor of First Presbyterian, and as I say, I'm not sure. Must be something worth quoting. He quoted to the congregation. He read to,
wow.
yeah.
Didn't know that.
That's it. Yeah.
That's great.
But I felt comfortable in the church. I had more my time. But
Yeah. So sorry,
Yeah.
I got us off track there a little bit. So
yeah.
let's go back to Camp Swift. Any other stories from that, or where did you go after Camp Swift? What happened next?
Well, after our 13 weeks there, we were shipped to. Let's see. Trying to think where. We went on maneuvers down in Louisiana, and we hit the rainy season in October. It was the rainy season, and I still remember. We put our tents up during the rainy season, and it was pretty bad. But it rained so much we had to dig a trench around the tent to drain the water off of the tent. And more than once, you didn't just have blankets on the ground, and that blanket would get wet once in a while. But we survived that, and but that was my first Christmas away from home. That was not easy, but we made that okay. Then from Louisiana, we went to up to Fort Leonard Wood in Missouri, not too far from St. Louis, and that was a good installation there. And I was able to see a Phillies game in St. Louis. that was great.
That's neat.
You get a like an overnight pass, and some of the fellows did a little more than I did on their pass, but I said no thanks. No, you go. And then let's see what else we got. Fort Leonard. Then we were shipped to the West Coast from there, and took up amphibious training type thing. They were preparing us to go to the Pacific, and we had ropes on the side of the ships there, and you learn how to climb the ropes up into the ship. Remember that? And then we had a 3-day training out in the Pacific on one of the ships, and I smelled. First experience I remember on this ship was smelled baked beans for 3 days. But that was good. Then we had training on those ships. We had, and if you know what an LCI is, a landing craft infantry is called, with a flat bottom, and you get on that and you learn to land on the island or whatever it was, the beach, yeah, and crawl through through the water with your powerful your rifle and your pack and your. And so we got through that. I still remember the head in the ship. Where you ever hear the head on the ship? Yeah, that was up in the front of the ship, and fortunately we didn't get too seasick. A couple of fellas got seasick on the ship, but see from there where we go. Well, from there they changed their mind. They needed help on the East Coast, so they got in the troop training. We didn't fly, didn't do anything, no flying. A troop training we followed from from I went up the west coast to Fort San Luis Obispo. I remember going up the west coast, San Luis Obispo, and that was a beautiful town up there. Anyway, went east to. I should interrupt that with before we went there. My mom got sick. Oh, she wasn't sick. She had a hernia. In those days, they didn't mess around too much with hernia, so I got a 10-day pass. Came home and visited my mom. But in 10 days, going from coast to coast, gives you about 3 days at home if you're lucky. And I know
you were traveling by train.
By train, yeah. And going back, hit us. Had to go through Chicago. My God, man. Hit Chicago and they had a snowstorm there, and the train was delayed. I ended up being dead late because of the snowstorms.
Oh wow.
And I had to plead with my CO that don't put that in my service record, please. And I finally talked him into skipping that. Okay, anyway. So then from there we. Am I going from the West Coast here? No, anyway.
You were saying they needed you back then on the East Coast.
On the East Coast, yeah, we ended up, and I spent a few days at home before we were shipped out from New Jersey. I remember the town, the city, but anyway. And let's see, that was in 44, like December 44. I spent some part of Christmas there in 44, and then ended up on the ship going to Germany. Well, actually ended in France. Went on a troop ship. That was fun. Down the lower, down the bowels of the ship. But we made it out there okay. We were in a fleet, I guess, with a fleet is protected ships on the side of us, and in Le Havre, France, and going up the coast of France, going through Germany, and then taking over some of the German houses there, and we ended up in a big, huge office space as our office, and then. Continuing there to Czechoslovakia. And one unpleasant experience I remember there was in Czechoslovakia. Somehow in the kitchen, they don't have a kitchen, but you sit outside and they have these huge boilers, boiling water where you have all the food and stuff. But then I remember kids coming in, Czechoslovakian kids coming in and hungry. They would eat out of the garbage can, and that was tough down here. Yeah, but yeah.
No, go again.
From Czechoslovakia. We finally VE Day was in May of '45, and so we were one of the first divisions to be shipped back home. I said, "Well, this is great. Well, we're first come, first served." No, so in May or June of '45, we were sent back, and I still remember the ship landing in New York, seeing that Statue of Liberty there, and that looked so good.
So where were you for V-Day? Do you you were
on
in
VE
Europe?
Day, I'm still in Europe. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
But you weren't at the
At the ceremony, you mean?
In Germany?
Sorry.
Or were you in Germany at that point, or
I was still,
Belgium?
oh boy. No, I guess we were coming out of Czechoslovakia. We're back, yeah. We didn't experience any of the celebration or anything like that, but
And then, sorry, I'm getting confused here. What the Battle of Normandy?
Before that.
That's
When
before
would,
that,
when would
yeah.
that have been?
early 45, I guess that was early.
So were you in Europe during that time?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, you were just in a different part. You weren't in France.
Yeah, I mean, it was mostly over by the time we got there. It was,
Okay.
right, yeah.
Okay.
But one thing about that experience was President Roosevelt died before May. I just forget what month that was. And the troops were pretty concerned about that because we felt that Roosevelt did a good job during the war, and we weren't sure about Truman, how he what he was going to make. He was a farmer, I think. It was, but it turned out that I thought Truman did a great job. He had to make the decision about the. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyway, they came. So we came home and gave us a 30-day furlough. Okay. And then we went down to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, for training, whatever it was. And in August of '45, they dropped the atom bomb. Okay, that's one thing that Truman had to decide whether to drop that bomb or not. But I think he made the right decision. He saved a lot of lives. So after they dropped the bomb, we thought, well, we've served our time. They don't need us anymore. But no way. They shipped us across country. They shanghaied us in a train going from Fort Bragg to Seattle. Yeah, with the rain. Anyway, and we didn't spend much time there. But first thing you know, we were on the ship in Seattle, ready to go Pacific, and we were actually on the ship September the 2nd when they signed the treaty, the peace treaty. But that didn't stop them. We kept on going, but ended up in one of the islands over there. I can't think of which one. But we spent about 2 or 3 weeks at this island in the ship. They didn't let us off the ship until MacArthur decided where to put us, what to do with us. It was too early yet. So we got off the ship. They finally sent us to Japan. And we didn't know what kind of reception we were going to get in Japan, but they were pretty peaceful. I mean, friendly. But they didn't know what to expect from us, I guess, when we got there. But and they housed us in Japanese type. What do you call them? I forget what they call them. Some kind of building. Yeah, with the sliding doors and the screen. And that was an experience, but I still remember. Somehow from home they shipped me a record player. That was a great experience. And along with the records and playing like a lot of these old records that was good. But we weren't allowed out of the compound. We were allowed to go to what they called the PX, the post exchange at that time. And I still remember I wasn't, because I didn't drink anything, not even beer. So, but some of my buddies were drinkers, and we went to the PX and they said, "Come on, Bob, you give it a try." He's like, "Okay, I'll give it a shot." But that beer tasted terrible. I mean, and they told me later that's only 4% alcohol, so you don't worry about getting drunk. So that was fun. And I took the expense, and then what else to get the. Where am I? The PX. So
So what exactly were you doing in the Pacific? Just kind of hanging out on the ship, just waiting to see if they gave you orders.
What at
Well,
one
you were
point?
in Japan.
What-
You were in Japan as an occupying. You were occupying Japan. You were part of the occupation forces. Right?
Yeah, no, we didn't. That's a good question. I mean, I'm not sure what. I still remember. Now that you bring that up, that's a good question because our CEO told us that there's a nearby factory near here. For some reason, they took over a crepe silk factory. Okay, they said you fellows can help yourselves to crepe silk if you want to. I said to myself, I didn't even have a girlfriend or wife or anything. What am I going to do with a bowl of crepe silk? So what have I got to lose? So I sent a bowl of crepe silk home, and lo and behold, my wife used that crepe silk to make a wedding gown.
Really?
And it turned out beautiful. It was,
That's a great story, Papa.
yeah. Yeah, and she enjoyed that, putting that on. I mean, I still have a picture of her in that gown. And, yeah.
That's neat. So what? I think we're getting near the end of your time in the service, correct? After you were in Japan, anything else that happened?
No, who was it that gave us cigarettes? I can't think of the name of the. I think Red Cross, was it? Red Cross. Anyway, somebody, and I wasn't a smoker, of course. So I sold my cigarettes to the Japs. I was able to send some money home from that, and yeah. So I was I tell you that I was company clerk. I told them anyway. I took care of the records, and anytime somebody wanted to sign up to re-enlist, they tried to put the pressure on you to re-enlist before you go home. And I tried to tell them, don't. You don't know what's ahead because you never know what's going to happen. And it's a good thing I did because the Korean War was started about 2 or 3 years after I left there.
So what would you say? What was the hardest part about serving in World War II?
The hardest part, the KP.
What's KP?
You know what KP?
No.
Kitchen police or kitchen something.
What would they do? Make sure you didn't eat too much?
That's one of the first things you do when you're in basic training.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
part of basic training. Getting in the kitchen and peeling potatoes.
Oh, actually working in the kitchen.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
And you wash dishes and
Yeah.
all that good stuff. And
Yeah. Did you have any friends or anyone you knew that you served along that passed away?
yes,
Like in service?
yeah. Well, I learned later after I got out that they had passed away, but
Yeah. So not many people in your company
no, they passed.
didn't pass from the
No,
war.
fortunately, of course, I don't know if I said that I was in the rear line. I was taking care of the payrolls, and the rest of the company was most up front.
Yeah.
This was actually, I tell you, it was an anti-tank platoon. Is what the company I was in was an anti-tank. In those days, they had anti-tank, which they phased those out. They weren't too effective, I don't think, against the tanks. But so where am I? Okay.
So that's good. I mean, unless there's anything else that you wanted to share from the war, or any other stories that you had that were funny or interesting, or that you would want people to know.
No, I made some close friends there, and one fellow. You weren't supposed to bring a camera. You weren't supposed to bring a camera with you when you're in the service, but this one fellow somehow smuggled a 35 millimeter camera along, and he took a lot of pictures. And so fortunately, after we were discharged, he asked if we wanted prints of some of the pictures he had, and he must have sent me about 50 pictures of the experience from the war.
Wow.
Yeah, that was great.
Wow, that's neat.
I think I still have some. Yeah. And so, on the way back, I stopped I went and finally got a haircut in the States, and I had a lot more hair than at that time, but no, then I was finally discharged in Seattle there.
Yes. What would you do after the war? What happened after that?
Yeah, I came home and looking for a job, and things were really tough at that time. It was hard to find a car. I figured if I have a car, maybe I can find a job, or vice versa. I don't know which way. So I scrounged around and finally found a used car lot in Conshohocken, and got a 1941 Chevy coupe. A coupe that had just one seat, held 3 people in the front seat.
Yep.
And had a big trunk in the back. And my wife loved that car. It was a red car, and we. I tell you, I don't know if you want to know about what happened after I got out of the army or not. But, you want to talk about that or not?
Talk about what?
What happened after I got out of the service or not?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, eventually you got a job, and
Yeah, I finally.
You've mentioned your wife a few times, so you can talk about how you met her. And
Yeah,
all of
I
that.
finally found a job in a screw company. Okay, Norristown Screw Company, and that's where met my wife. And she worked in the office also. I worked in the office and got $25 a week for that job. And she was a key punch operator in part of the office. And every day she had a sales report she had to make out. And I must have had the only adding machine in the office. And the adding machine happened to be in the desk in front of me. Okay, so every day she had to come out and total up the number of sales for that day, and she had the okay, sorry, she had the most beautiful smile. I can't remember, and so that's how we got to meet her. We got to talking, and eventually we started having lunch. We would have a brown bag lunch. We would go out and I drive my car to the Elmwood Park Zoo, which is, well, I didn't go in the zoo, but I mean in the park. Yeah. And we brown bag it every day. And we have an hour for lunch at that time. So, and then, she was driving to work also in her car, and I know whether her car broke down or what happened to it. So I ended up taking her home. She lived in Center Square, which is a couple of miles from where I was living, and so that's how I got to know her and got to know her family. She had 5 brothers and sisters, and had a chicken coop in the backyard. Outhouse, no plumbing. Okay. So we finally got married, and about how many years? About 2 years. We were engaged for 2 years. I got to, and got married in Center Square Church there. Had 2 pastors, my pastor and her pastor. Mine was Presbyterian, and hers was I forget what's it, Lutheran church. And my pastor wasn't too happy. He wanted the whole service for himself. He wanted, but anyway.
Did you have bridesmaids or other groomsmen? Like who were those people?
Yeah, her 2 sisters were bridesmaids, and my brother was a best man.
Who's that,
My
Bud?
brother,
Or was
Bud.
that
I was Bud.
Bud, yeah.
Yeah. And so we had just a small. We didn't. At that time, we couldn't afford too much, so we didn't have too many guests for the.
Yeah.
But our mother made the cake, I think, and had the reception down in the basement of the church, St. John's Church. Then we went on honeymoon to Ocean City, and on the way to Ocean City, we going through our travels to Ocean City, we'd stop. It was like not a detour, but we had to take a certain route. Anyway, there was some repair guys out working on the road, you know. And we had a just got married sign in the back of the car. We had everything but the tin cans, I think. And we saw these guys, and they were hesitant about letting us go through this thing. And one of the repairmen said, "Hey, better let this guy through. He just hung himself." So went from there to Ocean City, stayed in the Flanders Hotel there.
And that's where, is that the hotel where Kelly got married?
Kelly,
Flanders, right? Kelly got married in the Flanders Hotel?
Yeah.
Or that's where the reception was, yes.
oh yeah, Flanders Hotel.
and
Yeah,
that's where you
right. I'm
guys
sorry.
stayed?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, that was a beautiful hotel there. Yeah. But this hotel was nice, but it wasn't first class. But we bought our first purchase was our set of drinking glasses, and I think it was a hardware store. We saw them in the window. There's let's go pick this up, and we bought those glasses, and we used those for quite a while. And we enjoyed the beach there, and hi.
What? I won't make you talk too much about your honeymoon. We'll keep that private.
Ah, it's all right.
Yeah, that's fine. But yeah, before we pause, can you talked about your wife having a beautiful smile. You know.
Yes.
You really remember that. Was there any other characteristics that really stood out to you about her? You know, why you fell in love with her, or any fun dates that you guys went on that were really memorable?
Our first date, well, before we got married, our first date, I said, "No, I think she's pretty conservative. You know, she doesn't want to take too many chances." But with her family, was very conservative, and so I got to think of something to. So it's a fellow in our office who was really a character. I mean, he was like, and so I said I made up this thing, and his name was George, and I said. His name was Violet. I said, "I'm sorry, Violet. You want to go to a amusement park, Willow Grove amusement park, to see George." How I made this up. "Do you want to see George shot out of a cannon?" I said, I said, "No, I think she half believed me, but or whether she just, you know." So she finally said yes. So I went to Willow Grove on our first date, and took a number of the rides. And we didn't see George there, but I think she really enjoyed that trip.
Yeah.
And I still remember some of the going around in the cups, so we took a few more dates at that. But I took her in some places she had never been to. A lot of the places shopping and shopping and so forth. So you want to take a break, or are you going to wait?
Yeah, no, let's keep talking about your wife. And anything else that you remember from those younger years, or dating, or things that she did that really stood out to you, or that you loved, whether it be her laugh.
Well, I still remember being a small office. There's only about maybe 8, 10 people in this office. You know how it is in a small office. So other people in the office started noticing we were getting closer together before we were married, and oh, look at those guys, and especially when we went out to lunch together. Wow. So well, anyway, we stopped the rumors when we got married and finally got married. But they were good. I don't know what else to tell you about that, but But Vi was a very, very friendly, very personable, and she ran a key punch machine, which probably nobody ever heard of before. Had these cars that you had to run through a key punch machine for the sales for that day, and she was one of the few people that knew how to do that. But you run the cars through the key punch the cards for that day, and then you have to put them through a sorting machine, sorts all the cards out, and then you finally put it into the okay, the machine that prints them out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they had a storage area where we worked, and we had an office manager there who became friendly with another member of the office there. He was married, and all kinds of rumors going around. I said, well, somebody would tell me, the office manager goes out in the storage area. I couldn't believe it, but anyway, let that go. I think I would. Yeah, we worked together about 2 more years, and then we bought we bought a house in Egypt Road in Jeffersonville, and it had older red brick house, and it had a flat tin roof. And fortunately, Vi's father was a painter and a paper hanger, so he painted the roof aluminum color. As he said, that'll deflect some of the sun heat from going down. It was a 2-story brick, 3 bedrooms. But it was interesting that some of the things that was connected with the house. It had we called it a bucket a day furnace, a little not a pot belly, but a furnace down in the basement with heated water, and it used real pea. They called it pea coal, and that heated your water, but you had to keep after it. I mean, you had to be down there 4 or 5 times a day, feeding it, and then your furnace. That was the interesting part. You didn't have a system. Okay, just had a big boiler down in the basement on the, and it was right below the living room, and the living room led off to the stairway going up, and so that one heater, he was supposed to heat the whole house, which you had to stretch it really. So the heat was supposed to go up the stairway to heat your, but it was a little chilly up in the upstairs. But that was fun, and of course we were feeding the furnace quite a bit. But then you had a coal bin. You had to have 2 coal bins, one with the larger. I even forget the name of the coal now, but for the heater, and the pea coal for the bucket a day. But and we had a 2-car garage, which is unusual for that. We rented half of the garage, one half to some friend of ours. $5 a month. That was a big mountain in those days. And another thing, we had it didn't have a sewer system that day. They had a septic tank in the backyard. That septic tank was for both houses, the twin houses. We had twin houses, okay. So the people next door to us in the twin house had 2 kids. So they ended up using twice as much water as we did, and yet we had to pay so much a month for the septic tank to get it emptied. Had to empty it every every other month. Empty. So I had a small lawn with a garden, but we worried so much about filling up the septic tank. I had the washer in the back porch, and had the washer connected with a hose. Ran out the back door into an empty lot in the back, and I pumped the water out of the washer into the backyard. In those days, they had pumps. So, yeah, what else about that house?
Yeah, that's fine. What about, when did you guys start having children and all of that?
Yeah, we moved in the house in 48, I guess it was, and so Bob didn't come along until 5 years. We waited 5 years, and I had a miscarriage after that, and we had Linda, and it was 5 years between Linda and Bob.
And you and Violet kept working together?
I think I said Vi worked for about 2 years. I said, and then she quit, and then she enjoyed being a housewife.
Yeah.
So I worked at the screw. Did I tell you it was a screw company? Yeah, it was
Yep. So how long did you work there for?
I was there 11 years.
Okay.
And then finally got a job. I could see the business was not what it should be at the screw company. We were probably selling fewer screws, and so I kept looking in the paper for jobs, and I finally found an ad for a company in Bridgeport, and it was a Lee's Carpet, yeah. And so I applied for the job and got the job. And I worked as in the meantime, through the GI Bill, I took an accounting course and did okay on that, and that's one reason I got the job, I guess. So I worked in that job for that company for 11 years. 55. I worked from 1955 to 55 to, no, that's a little later than that, 58. I worked there for 30 years. I worked for them for 30 years, from 58 to retired in 1987. What else I could
Do you have any fun memories of Bob or Linda when they were kids? Anything that was funny or silly that they had done that you remember, or any fun memories as a family on trips you took or places you went?
Well, I just remember dressing up in Halloween costumes and that kind of stuff, and went around with them door to door, and that was fun. Just funny, some experiences with places, especially with the houses you picked out that didn't have any children in the house. They were a little hesitant in having people come in, but and we tried to use our imagination and the costumes and stuff that they were. I remember Bob had a couple of clown outfits, and what else I've done? I can.
So we haven't talked about the Phillies at all. So you're a big Philadelphia Phillies fan. Can you talk about when did that start, or why you love baseball so much? Did you play baseball? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, my brother and I. My brother's a big baseball fan.
Bud or
Huh?
Bud
Bud.
or-
That was Bud. Yeah. He. But he was a Phillies fan. And at that time, I was an A's fan. If you ever heard of the Philadelphia Athletics
Yeah.
at Broad and Lehigh, at 21st and Lehigh, 21st and Lehigh, and but as I said, he's a Phillies fan. So I had never been to a game before, so I was trying to figure some way of something. And he said the only way he would take me if we went to a Phillies game. So. Okay, I'll be a Phillies fan for a day. And went to, it was called Baker Bowl, and it had a high right field, if you call it a fence. I mean, it was high. It was, and at that time, Chuck Klein was one of the favorite sluggers for the Phillies. He was a left-hander, and he could bang that ball against that fence right there. But that was fun. So then I finally was able to talk him into going to an A's game at Shibe Park. Or at that time, they called it Shibe Park. Yeah, it was in Shibe. I guess that was because the name of the street was Shibe. I guess anyway. So to Shibe with, still remember Connie Mack. He was a manager, and he never put a baseball uniform on or all. He was always dressed up with a tie, a shirt and tie, but even had a hat on. He's quite a character, but and
Who was your favorite Philadelphia Phillies player to watch?
well, of course, eventually Mike Schmidt was my
Yeah.
Had a outfielder called Wally Moses, and trying to think of the shortstop's name. Shortstop lived near here, but John Lake was. Anyway. Anybody else that?
That's fine.
Yeah.
Can you talk about raising your family and what it meant for you to raise your family in faith and to model Christ to them and just the importance of church? Can you talk about that and how you raised your family?
Yeah. Okay. Well. Where do I start? I don't know. Even though my family wasn't what we call Christian and tolerant, except for my mom, and she instilled in me some faith, and I tried to pass that on to my kids. So we all started going to church together, and Sunday school, and there was I don't know. I try to be as close to them as possible, because when they have problems, I could kind of sense when they had something on their mind, and I try to let them know that anytime they had any problem, if they couldn't get along with kids at school or somebody, because you always encounter somebody that's going to nag you or whatever. But I think they appreciate that. And what else to get? And we both agreed on how to teach them moral principles and make them realize that everybody has nobody's perfect, so they have to learn to forgive people, and especially in school where some of the kids try to try to bug you about what you wear, and I remember he had a friend. Bob had a friend that a schoolmate that was kind of giving him a hard time about because he was a Christian, maybe, and I got him through that. Hopefully, I helped him, and you try to instill him that, as I say, you get to realize that there's all kinds of people in this world, and you have to kind of learn to listen, be a good listener, and empathize with them, sympathize with them, and realize that the Lord will take care of them. You have to have a lot of patience with some people, really. And just take them out in the backyard and enjoy their sports that they have. We had croquet, which I enjoyed that, and badminton. I don't know.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
So, going back to to your timeline, so you said you retired in 1987.
Yeah.
Any stories or anything you want to share about post-retirement?
Yeah.
Laura was born in 85, so you would have been a grandfather at that point.
Yeah.
Anything you like to do in retirement, or things that you and Violet would do, or trips you went on? Anything that you want to share?
Well, one thing I want to mention, when I retired, they gave me a small, call it a party in the office. There didn't go to any big thing, and so you're supposed to make a little speech or something when you retire. So I brought my Bible. Into the church, into the office, which is the first, I guess. And I picked the verses verses in Corinthians. Anyway, something about depending on the Lord, and I said in my 30 years here, I depended on that because you meet all kinds of people and all kinds of temperaments, and I even talked to my boss about the Lord. He was not a churchgoer, and he ended up in the hospital for whatever it was, and I visited him there tried to pass the word along to him there. I got them. And I ended up. One of the fellows in the office was not. Well, I don't think he was a Christian at all, but when I somehow, and what little I said at my retirement age, must have had made an impression on him. So I ended up getting him a Bible, and before I left, and he really appreciated that. But outside that, without you asked me something else.
So in retirement, anything fun you did? You go on any trips, or
Yeah.
you and Violet had a lot of time together? What did you guys enjoy doing? Playing games or anything like that?
Yeah. Well, one other thing, after a couple of years of retirement, I got a little bored from it. So I took a couple part-time jobs, and one of them was not selling, but I worked for a company in Bridgeport that repaired typewriters, and in those days they had adding machines and that kind of stuff. So they employed me. The first job was to go around different companies. They gave me the names of companies I wasn't really, not too much of a salesman, but I thought I'd give it a shot. So I ran these different companies and asked them whether they'd heard. I'd give them a business card and tell them what we did. we repaired them, and we also sold them, I guess. And it was just a small office there, but that was my first part-time job. Then I ended up in the, across from the courthouse in Norristown Courthouse. They call it Plaza One, I think they call it. Anyway, they end up in the tax department. They had I think it was a 1% tax, whatever they called it. People of things that your investment. There's a tax, a local county tax on, and you. So I ended up auditing the tax forms that they came in, and that was interesting too. But I think what else you get done.
When I know you've been volunteering at the hospital for a long time. When did that start, and how did that start? Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, after Bob had passed away for about a year or so, I was getting a little bored myself. So Bob had volunteered during the war as a what they call not a gray lady, but I had another name for it. Anyway, at Montgomery Hospital. So she volunteered on doing that during the war, and so I somehow picked that up when she passed away, and well, I'm still supposedly volunteering right now. So I started and see that she about a year after she passed away. And I was going around in Montgomery Hospital to visit the patients. Well, now before that job, they just start you off as pushing the wheelchairs and pushing the stretchers and that kind of stuff. So I did that, and I met a lot of people doing that. Yeah.
We don't have to talk about this if you're not comfortable, but can you talk about how Violet passed away, and was that difficult for you, and how? I don't know. Just talk about any of your feelings or emotions during that time.
Yeah. Well, of course that was pretty difficult, but yeah, she had ovarian cancer at the time, and so they said I did a good job of taking care of her. I don't know. They had the visiting thing. Did they call it visiting nurses? Or they could, anyway, yeah, she ended up needing oxygen. So I got a small oxygen tank, a portable one, and we would take walks. I would carry the tank while she was walking. So she enjoyed that, and she had ovarian cancer. She filled up with fluid and stuff, and eventually just said that there was so much pain in the chest and so filling up with fluid that she had enough of that. So they kept her comfortable to the end, and so we had a hospital bed eventually in there, and
at your house.
At the house, yeah. So I would sleep. She would sleep in the bed, and it'd be in the living room. Actually, the bed's in the living room, and so I'd sleep on the Davenport and stuff alongside her, because just well, I don't know how much. Just one night I could hear her, and she was in pain. Then so I called the doctor, and they. That was it. She just she was taking what is the painkiller? I forget now what that. Yeah. But when I talked to Linda, she said she was going to see if she could get her pastor, because I couldn't. For some reason, my pastor wasn't coming, and this is like midnight. So it's nice she had the pastor, and this was in December, but December 12th, and we ended up singing Silent Night that night. From then on, every Christmas I get kind of gets me when I sing that Silent Night. But fortunately, she was out of pain at the time, and well, I guess that was about it.
Yeah, I'm sure that was tough. Thanks for talking about that, Poppop. I'm sure that wasn't easy, but neat to hear about, your recollection of that story.
Yeah.
I guess just general questions. What if you had to give advice to any of your great grandchildren? Reese is just over 1, Allie's not quite 1. What advice would you give them once they turn 10 years old or something like that? Or what advice would you give to someone today on how to live their life, or just best advice that you would have for them?
Oh, what? I could write a book. No. Well, the first thing, I guess, is become a Christian and stay close to the Lord every day of your life and depend on Him and know that He is always there with you. And just try to be fair to everyone, and try to live the life that the Lord would have you to be honest, and just try to just try to be the best you can and depend on the Lord, and know that you're never by yourself. You're never alone. You can join a good church and marry a good husband, good man. But it's important, I think, if you're off on a good footing if you're both Christians together. Like it, yeah. I guess that's pretty much okay. Yeah.
What about do you have any regrets in your life, or anything you wish you did, or anything you wish you didn't do?
I could write a book there too. Yeah. Bye. Bye. Night. Good night.
Do you want to bring her
Stay
on?
tight.
Yeah. It's a little chilly.
You can just put her in front of. You can put her with Poppop. Get her on camera quick.
Oh,
Put her on his lap.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. She's gonna put up with that. Hi, sweetheart. Hey. Hey, look at that. Hey.
Hi, say hi.
No.
Okay. All right, he's ready.
Okay.
Hi.
Yay!
Look at Daddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, who do you see?
Poppop.
All right, good night. Reese is going to
Night.
bed.
Good night, sweet.
Love you.
Love you. Take care.
Yeah.
All right. So, any regrets?
Well, I wish that Vi and I had more time to take more trips together. More, a lot we wanted to see and didn't get to see, and I guess no, I can think that's pretty much. I don't think I
Anything else you want to talk about? Any crazy stories or time you got seriously injured or I don't know, anything like that that would be interesting to know?
Well, I had a volunteer job at a local church. They had a food kitchen, I guess they call it there, where people came in from the outside and get their bags of food on a weekly basis. And so I volunteered one day a week, and they stored their food on racks on the basement floor. I don't know what they call it, like a 2 inches high, something like that. And they had aisles of the food, and the people had to go through the aisles with a basket and pick out their food. And so this one time I was standing there by this one rack, and somebody was coming through, and I had my back to the rack and trying to make room for this person to get through. And lo and behold, I didn't realize the rack was there, and I went flat on my back on the rack. I broke a vertebrae in
In your spine?
In my spine, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And got the x-rays done, and the L2 vertebrae. And so they ended up putting cement, can you believe that, right into the spine. Right up. And I said, well, how long is this going to last? And said, oh, you shouldn't rest the rest of your life, hopefully. So I still have it. And
So you've been carrying around that extra weight for a long time.
yeah. Before that, I could just about get out of bed before I got the cement shop. But so that was the last time I was on that job, I guess. But what else did I get? I think I meant I don't know. It might have been there.
That's okay. I don't know if I have any other questions. Trying to think of any stories that we've talked about before that I could remember, but I think you've touched on a lot of them. Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm good if you're good.
Okay, yeah, I'm good. I try to be good. But I don't.
I guess maybe one last one. If you... I don't want it to be too similar to other questions, but like what would your message be, or what would you want people to remember your legacy as when you leave this earth?
I'd say trying to help other people, trying to lift their load wherever I could, whether trying to make them happy, make them lighten the load, just or and try to encourage them to stay on the right path. I mean, you know what I mean by follow the Lord and be faithful in reading your Bible and being a good witness for other people where you have the occasion. I think that's about it. There you go.
Well, that's great, Poppop. You've certainly done that. That's definitely your legacy and something that I think we're all proud of you for. So.
Well, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. It's probably so many other things that I'll think of later. Why didn't I say?
That's all right. We can do this again sometime if we need to.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Poppop.
You're welcome.